I always have to wait on the 12 o'clock talk until it's actually afternoon to welcome everybody. We picked a beautiful day to come to the Outer Banks of North Carolina. It's actually not that cold. The Wright Brothers would disapprove. On the morning of the first flight, which we'll talk more about in a minute, the wind chill factor is 3 degrees. So we're doing much better this December than they were doing 110 years ago. Well, welcome to Wright Brothers National Memorial. My name is Josh. I'm one of the Rangers here. And before we talk about the Wright Brothers and this flying machine behind me, I just want to give you a couple tips about vacationing in the Outer Banks this time of year. You guys are on holiday, so you were not up at 6:37 in the morning this morning. But if you were, you would notice that there's a lot of moisture on the road, and at night with the wind, it freezes. We have a lot of black ice, especially on bridges and overpasses here. As you're driving, especially early in the morning or after the sun sets, just drive safe. I want you to have an accident-free holiday. And also, thing to pay attention to if you're going down to Cape Hatteras National Seashore, just pay attention to the local news or check in your hotel, the reception area, and just make sure that the bottom bridge is still open. It's the bridge that connects Body Island down to Hatteras Island. And it was closed for about 3 weeks, So, should be issues, but worth checking. Because if you get down there and the bridge closes, then you've got a 4-hour ferry ride to Swampwater, which I don't know if you're planning on doing or not. But good. Okay. How many people here have been to Wright Brothers before? I see some returnees. This is good stuff. Okay. Good. The Wright Brothers knew what they were doing. When I first got here 3 years ago, I did not know what I was doing. And the reason for that is my degree is in philosophy and religious studies, which is a long ways away from figuring out how to make this thing fly. Now, lucky for me, when I got here, my boss gave me a lot of books. And for you kids in the audience, I hate to break it to you, but learning never stops. School is continual. And when I opened this book up, I started at page 1. First couple lines of page 1 is a quote from Wilbur Wright from 1900. It's from a letter that he wrote to a guy by the name of Homage. For some years, I've been afflicted with the belief that flight is possible to man. And I've been trying to arrange my affairs in such a way that I can devote my entire time for a few months to experiment in this field. I also fear that this affliction will cost me a great deal of money and quite possibly my life. It is with that letter that the Wright brothers truly began the pursuit of flight. Wrote in the early part of 1900, by the end of 1903, they became the first people in the history of the world to fly. I guess that pursuit worked out pretty well. Now, in order to fly, you have to be able to do a couple of things. You have to be able to get off the ground. You have to be able to control yourself in the air. And you have to be able to propel yourself through the air. The Wright brothers wrote down each of those things into some core component parts. Let's take them one by one. First, how modern technology is not going to work, it's crackling. I'll put on my theater voice, and you shall go. First, how do you control yourself in the air? Because without control, every flight ends the same way. It's a 5-letter word, starts with C, ends with ash. Crash. The Wright brothers
Dayton, Ohio, studied some birds, and they did so because there was some basic assumptions that we were making. The first is they noticed that there were some birds that didn't need to flap their wings to fly. Those birds are soaring birds, eagles, hawks, vultures. And the Wright brothers said, surely man can make a flying machine that doesn't need to flap its wings to fly. They studied turkey vultures, because turkey vultures fly in a circle. And you can study them all day. And if you study turkey vultures long enough, you'll realize that the way in which they turn is simple. If they want to make a left-hand turn, they just drop the trailing edge of their right wing. If they want to make a right-hand turn, they drop the trailing edge of their left wing. So the Wright brothers were trying to figure out, how do I incorporate this into a flying machine? In Dayton, Ohio, the Wright brothers owned what kind of shop? A bicycle shop. And even nowadays, if you own a bicycle, occasionally you have to change the tube inside the wheel. Wilbur Wright sold an inner tube to a customer and was talking to that customer. And he was playing with the box. He looked at the box as he was playing with it, and he realized one thing. That when he dropped the tailing edge on one side, it brought up the other, and vice versa. Just like a turkey vulture. The Wright brothers decided to test if you can make a box fly. They did it in small scale first. This is a kite. This is a kite they built in 1900. And lo and behold, just like the box, you can drop one wing, make the other go up, and as a kite, you can make the kite go to the right, and to the left, and to the right, and to the left. So we'll get slightly ahead of ourselves here. Does anyone see a really big box? If a box and a turkey vulture had a baby, it would be the flying machine. When you drop the trailing edge of one wing, the other wing goes up. By the end of 1900, the Wright brothers had figured out the basic design for turning an aircraft. It's called wing warping, or playing with box. Now that they had some basic design features figured out, it was time to test it out. And in 1901, the Wright brothers came back to Kitti Hawk, North Carolina, with a glider. A really big kite. And they had a plan. They were going to throw each other off the tallest sand dune in Kitti Hawk, North Carolina, and try to fly this thing. Now this kite was big enough to hold the Wright brothers. But there was also a problem with this kite. And that problem was this. Every time they threw each other off of that big hill, it had the same result. It's a 5-letter word, starts with C, ends with ash. Crash. Their experiments in 1901 gave them, as my father would say, a frowny face. On the train ride back to Dayton, Ohio, Will returns to Orville and says, man will not fly for 1,000 years. But lucky for the Wright brothers, they had a sister. Their sister Catherine said, get back to work. Your problems with getting off the ground aren't your problems. They've got to be somebody else's problem. They got back to work. Catherine was right. The problem wasn't with the Wright brothers. It was with the equation that existed prior to them. You see, a German guy by the name of Otto Lilienthal came up with an equation for lift. You put an X number of pounds or kilograms, and now you know how big of a surface area you need. And that equation was totally wrong. So the Wright brothers built a wind tunnel in their bike shop, tested shapes for the most efficient lift, and from those shapes developed a new equation. I will not share with you the equation today because it's an equation without numbers. It's that math stuff that I didn't take. But I will tell you that equation is less than 1/10 of 1% off what NASA uses today. And with that equation, you can build yourself a flying machine that will fly really well. It turns out the shape that they found to be most efficient was this. What does this look like to you? The wing of a bird? Not just a coincidence. But also the wing of a lot of planes, including the 1903 flying machine and the 1902 flight. So, the Wright brothers now have the basic design of a box and something that will get them off the ground. In 1902, they come back with a bigger glider. It's actually the glider you see in the back of the room, the one that Orville has been laying on now, I think, for 17 years straight. Same plan, throw each other off the hill, different result. They're flying. But when they start getting in the air, they realize this problem of control is more than turning like a turkey vulture. Because when you're in the air, it's like when you're swimming in the water. You can go up, down, right, left, and side to side. And unless you've got all three of them figured out, your day will end with that 5-letter word that starts with a C and ends with that. I like my chorus. This is good. Up and down is fairly easy to solve. The Wright brothers solve it in less than a day. You simply build yourself a different kind of box and stick it on the front of the aircraft. That's what this is. It's called the elevator. On modern airplanes, they're called ailerons. The way it works is simple. If you tilt this slightly back, we'll tilt it all the way back. The air hits these things and pushes the front of the aircraft up. It's like sticking your hand out a car window. Up, down, up, down, up, down. So now the Wright brothers can go up and down, and they can kind of turn. What do I mean by kind of turn? They can drop the trailing edge of the right wing and go into a beautiful left-hand turn, but then something bad happens every single time. It's a 5-letter word, starts with a C, ends with dash. What happens is as they increase the lift on this wing, they also increase the drag. So while the wings want to turn this way, the nose of the aircraft wants to turn that way. So you go, beautiful turn, crash. The reason for this is they haven't solved the whole side-to-side problem. Here's how you solve it. You stay up late one night and you drink too much coffee, and you happen to be a genius named Orville Wright. And you think about the trip from Dayton, Ohio to here. 2 train rides, 2 boat rides. Ladies and gentlemen, we are going on a boat ride. We're on a boat, we're headed to the 4 visitors right over there. We're doing good, doing good, doing good. And then all of a sudden, current comes from this side, and it starts putting the nose of the boat over to this nice ledge right here. What do I do with the boat? Get the nose of the boat back to the 4 visitors. Turn the rudder, because the rudder offsets the current, right? This giant box of a turkey vulture has a rudder. It's in the back. And in 1902, when they put a rudder on their glider, they throw themselves off that hill. They get airborne. And the result of that is a 6-letter word, starts with F, ends with Wright. It's called flight. No more crashes for the Wright brothers, because they have created the first controllable flying machine. They did it in a glider first. And when they left here in 1902, they had over 1,000 successful glides off that big sand dune known as Kill Devil Hill. And they knew the next year they were going to fly. All they had to do was scale it up, put an engine on this, put some propellers, good to go. Why are they good to go? Because engines exist and propellers exist. No problem. The Wright brothers wrote a lot of letters. You know a lot about them? Including letters to companies like Ford Motor Company. And they said, "Dear Ford, we're the Wright brothers. We need an engine. It needs to weigh less than 200 pounds and produce a whopping 8 horsepower. Can you help us out?" If they got answers back, the answers were like, "Stop bothering us. Because what you're asking for is not something we can build." Because at the turn of the century, they were building engines out of cast iron. You can't build an engine out of cast iron if it's less than 200 pounds. The Wright brothers did not need encouragement from their sister this time. They went to their bike shop mechanic, his name's Charlie Taylor, and said, "Charlie, we designed an engine for you. Can you build it for us and make it out of something that weighs less than 200 pounds? Charlie said, "No problem." So the Wright brothers designed their own engine, and Charlie made it out of aluminum. It weighs 180 pounds, produces 12 horsepower. Good stuff. Now, the only thing that was left to do is to get the power of the engine to the propellers to move the aircraft through space. Now, by this point, I don't think the Wright brothers were surprised to learn that the problem of propellers had not been solved either. Even though groups like the United States Navy had been using propellers for more than half a century. There are good propellers and there are bad propellers. You measure the difference through another one of those equations that doesn't have any numbers. It measures efficiency, which means how much of the energy being directed toward the propeller gets converted into thrust on the other end. The Wright brothers needed truly efficient propellers because this flying box of a turkey vulture is built on such narrow margins that if everything didn't work out just right, you were never getting off the ground. So how do you develop an efficient propeller? Well, you think about the problem in a unique way. So, I mentioned earlier that they figured out this lift thing, right? Lift is simply using the air to generate a force on the bottom of the wing greater than gravity pushes down on the top of the wing, right? Does that make sense? High pressure, low pressure. There you go. What it's doing is it's using the air that is around us that we don't pay any attention to, that we often don't even notice for days and days at a time, unless we try and race down the flight line and we get winded, to lift something up. Well, what if we take this wing, turn it sideways, use the same air, but not to lift something up, but to push it forward? The equation to generate the greatest amount of lift here is pretty much the equation to generate the greatest amount of thrust here. The hand-carved wooden propellers that the Wright brothers designed and put on the 1903 aircraft are just above 64% efficient. If you ask the folks at NASA today to make a propeller out of wood, the best they will do is 68% efficient. So in December of 2003, on the 100th anniversary of the first flight, the sister ship to this, built at the same time, tried to fly right here on this grassy area in front of 60,000 people. But unlike 100 years prior, on the morning of December 17th, 1903, that plane didn't get off the ground. Environmental conditions were part of the problem. Too humid, too wet, and a bunch of other stuff. But even if it had gotten off the ground, there would have been a bigger problem. The person who was piloting that aircraft did not have 1,000 successful glide attempts under his belt. In fact, he had had a whopping 9 seconds of flight time in a 1903 flying machine under his belt.